They called her lost, said she looked like someone's mum who'd wandered in after yoga class. From the moment she walked into Apex Combat and Fitness, every trainers, influencers, and weekend warriors alike wrote her off. Mira Collins, 53, walked through the front doors of the elite New Jersey gym with a calm, tired grace. She wasn't wearing Lululemon. Her t-shirt was faded, her shorts loose and mended, and her boxing shoes cracked leather and flattened soles let out the faintest squeak with each step. She didn't try to look tough. She didn't need to. No one knew her name. To them, she was just that lady. The front desk guy barely glanced up. Logan, a 28-year-old trainer with perfect hair and arms made for Instagram, was too busy flexing for a TikTok clip with a model named Tessa in neon leggings. Mira waited, then quietly cleared her throat. "Excuse me, I'd like to register for a sparring round." The pen in Logan's hand paused mid-air. He turned, looked Mira over slowly. His smirk arrived a second later. "In the ring?" he asked, voice dripping with amusement. "This isn't self-defense for seniors." Tessa giggled. "Oh," she said, mock pouting. "Maybe they're filming a retro comeback movie. You know, like $1 Million Grandma?" People nearby snickered. The word spread fast. A crowd began to form near the ring, half curious, half amused. Some leaned against the ropes with protein shakes. Others pulled out their phones. Mira remained still. "Just one round," she said simply. Her voice was quiet, but not timid. That's when he stepped forward. Troy Maddox, 26 years old, 6 feet tall, 80 kilograms of shredded muscle, and social media bravado. He was the gym's resident champ, a local amateur who'd posted dozens of sparring clips online, often featuring him humiliating first-timers with fancy footwork and soft jabs. His gloves were red and white, custom-stitched with his nickname, T-Roy. He grinned as he walked over, already enjoying the performance. "You want to spar me, Miss Frizzle?" he joked, nodding at her outdated shoes. "You sure you don't want to start with the punching bags?" "She probably thinks this is cardio boxing," someone muttered. "Yo, someone get her a headband and a chair," another added. "She's gonna need it." Mira didn't respond. She adjusted the strap on her glove-frayed leather that creaked from age and looked Troy dead in the eye. Not defiant, just composed. Troy turned to the group. "All right, folks, one round. Someone grab their phones. This is going to be quick." Logan finally wrote Mira's name on the sign-up sheet, rolling his eyes as he did. 3 minutes, he said, as if announcing the weather. "Try not to sue us when you wake up sore tomorrow." Even the head coach, Victor, an old Golden Gloves guy who now mostly ran drills for teenage influencers, walked by with a skeptical glance. "She's serious?" he mumbled. No one answered. Inside the ring, Mira tightened her gloves, stepped softly across the mat, and waited in her corner. Troy bounced on his toes theatrically, shadowboxing for the crowd. "Don't blink, Grandma," he sneered. "I don't want you to miss it." Tessa leaned over the ropes with her phone. "You better not break a hip, girl," she said sweetly. That was the moment it happened. Not a punch, not a scream, just a shift. The way Mira rolled her shoulders, the way her stance settled, not stiff, not flailing, but controlled. Her knees bent slightly, her breathing even. It wasn't obvious, not yet. But someone watching carefully might have noticed. Mira wasn't standing like a beginner. She was standing like she knew something. The crowd didn't see it. They were still laughing. "Lightweight division's down the hall," someone called out. "She's probably here to impress her grandson." But Mira didn't flinch, didn't smile, didn't blink. She stood like she'd stood in rings before, not to win followers, but for something else entirely. Troy stepped forward, grinning as he waited for the bell. The smirks in the gym were wide. The phones were recording. The whispers were cruel. And still she said nothing. She simply raised her gloves. The bell rang with a crisp clang, and the crowd leaned in, ready for the comedy show they thought was about to unfold. Troy came out fast. Always did. His footwork was flashy more for the camera than combat, but it impressed the average eye. He led with a jab, then snapped a right cross, his gloves cutting through the air in a flurry, meant to intimidate. Mira didn't block. She didn't counter. She moved. Her weight shifted left, then right, her steps gliding like water over stone. She slipped under the cross, let his jab breeze past her shoulder, barely an inch from contact. At first, the audience didn't notice. They were too busy hyping Troy up. "Let's go, T-Roy," someone yelled. "Tag her and bag her." But Troy's punches didn't land. Not a single one. Mira didn't even raise her gloves above her chin. Her hands stayed low, casual. her eyes locked on his core, not in fear, but in calculation. Trainer Marcus, a quiet guy with cauliflower ears and a sharp eye, stood with his arms folded at the back of the gym. He narrowed his gaze. "Hold up," he muttered to himself. "That ain't random." Derek, another trainer, looked over. "What?" "Her feet. Watch her feet." On the mat, Mira pivoted again, ducking a hook with eerie ease, her knees bent perfectly, her core centered. When Troy tried to trap her against the ropes, she sidestepped, not with panic, but with purpose. Still no punches thrown, still no reaction. Troy growled, annoyed now. His smile faded. The laughter in the gym dimmed just a bit. From the ropes, Tessa whispered, "Why hasn't she hit back?" No one answered. Jason, one of Troy's regular training buddies, leaned forward. "She doesn't have to," he said quietly. "She's reading him." More jabs, more combos. Troy was working harder now. Mira was still dancing her steps, minimal, efficient, as if conserving energy. "She's not scared," Marcus said, louder this time. "She's studying him." Derek shook his head. "She's just lucky." "No," Marcus said. "She's trained." Halfway through the round, something changed. The joke stopped. People started watching for real. The movement of the crowd shifted, like wind changing direction. Phones were still filming, but hands were steady now, faces tightened with confusion. The gym was no longer laughing, they were waiting. Troy's breathing grew heavier, his combinations sloppier. He tried a step-in uppercut, but Mira leaned back just enough to make him mishand, then spun out, resetting in perfect position. Her shoes squeaked slightly as she pivoted, but she never stumbled, never flinched. "Where'd she learn to move like that?" someone whispered. Marcus didn't blink. "That's old school. That's not YouTube technique. That's muscle memory." And still, Mira didn't punch. That restraint, that calm, began to unnerve the room. Because it wasn't just defense. It was control. Every dodge, every slip was intentional. She was letting him show all his cards, and she hadn't even drawn hers. Troy's frustration boiled over. He lunged with a wild right hooker crowd pleaser, big and flashy. Mira ducked it with terrifying grace. And for the first time, she stepped in. Her lead foot planted, her hips rotated slightly. She didn't swing. But the message was clear. She could have. And Troy felt it. He stumbled back, realizing in that moment that he was no longer the one dictating the pace. The audience didn't cheer. They gasped. Tessa slowly lowered her phone, her lips parted. "She's not just good," she whispered. "She's dangerous." "Why isn't she punching him?" Logan asked aloud, as if the silence had become louder than sound. "Because she doesn't need to," Marcus answered. "Not yet." The gym had flipped. Where there was mockery, now there was unease. Where there was laughter, now there was a building tension tight, electric. The next 30 seconds passed like thunderclouds rolling in. Troy circled, throwing punches that landed on air. Mira didn't taunt. She didn't smile. Her gloves hovered near her waist like a gunslinger waiting for the right moment. And then, it clicked. Derek's eyes widened. "She's baiting him." Marcus nodded. "She's setting the trap." A group near the bench press stopped mid-rep to watch. A kid with a man bun who'd called her Mrs. Doubtfire earlier whispered, "I think she's a pro." Jason, Troy's sparring partner, said nothing. His arms were folded, his mouth tight. For the first time since Mira had walked in, the gym wasn't looking at her like a joke. They were looking at her like a storm. Troy, red-faced and breathing heavy, barked, "Stop dancing, hit me." Mira's response was a simple, quiet pivot. No words. Just that unshakable calm. The round was nearing its end. The crowd leaned closer, silent now. The bell was about to ring. And Mira's gloves twitched. Troy stepped in again, desperate now not for dominance, but for dignity. Sweat streaked down his temples. His breathing was uneven. His combos came faster, but sloppier, like a man flailing in deep water, trying to reach something he could no longer see. Mira saw it all. His weight distribution, the widening of his elbows, the way his right foot twitched before every uppercut. And she waited. Her eyes tracked him like crosshairs, but her face betrayed nothing. No smugness, no contempt, only precision wrapped in silence. Troy threw a brutal right uppercut, aiming to end it. And that's when she moved. It was a blur. Her hips rotated, her shoulders snapped forward, and her right glove struck with the speed and finality of a hammer on a gong. A liver hook, clean, surgical. The impact echoed through the room with a sickening thud, like wood splitting under pressure. Not loud, but final. Troy didn't scream. He froze. His mouth opened, but no sound came. Then, his knees buckled. The gym's collective breath hitched as he collapsed, crumpling to the mat like a marionette with its strings cut. His gloves clutched his side, his face twisted in agony, pale as chalk. No one said a word. No jeers. No cheers. Only the faint hum of the lights and the soft creak of the ropes. Tessa dropped her phone. Logan stared, eyes wide, lips parted. Even Coach Victor, who'd been muttering jokes from the back, took a step forward like he'd just witnessed something sacred or dangerous. The silence was oppressive. Then the gym door opened, and in walked a man with a grey beard and a gait like a soldier coach, Reggie Blake, former Olympic trainer and a legend in East Coast boxing circles. He stopped in his tracks when he saw the scene Troy folded on the canvas, Mira standing motionless in the center of the ring, her breathing steady, her gloves still raised. Reggie broke the silence with a gravelly laugh that cracked through the tension like thunder. "Number freakin' way," he said, pointing directly at her. "I'll be damned. Mira Collins." Head snapped toward him. Logan blinked. "Wait, what?" Reggie stepped closer, shaking his head in awe. "You all thought she was just some walk-in? That's Iron Mira, Northeast lightweight champion. Held the title 4 years straight. Retired after she shattered her knee in Philly." He looked at Mira, and there was pride in his voice now. "You had us fooled, girl. Still moving like you never left." Tessa's face turned ghost white. Jason stared down at Troy, still gasping on the mat. Logan stammered, You mean she's a pro?" "No," Reggie said, still grinning. "She's the pro. The kind they used to call when the boys couldn't handle the real work." Coach Victor rubbed his face, embarrassed. "I should have known. That footwork." Marcus let out a low whistle. "She baited him. She let him swing. That wasn't a comeback. That was a masterclass." Suddenly, the crowd that had once circled the ring with smirks and snide comments stood frozen in reverence. Phones hung limp in hands. No one dared speak first. Mira didn't gloat, didn't nod. She simply unstrapped her gloves, the Velcro ripping through the silence. Troy was still curled up on the floor, coughing, his ego as broken as his breathing rhythm. No one moved to help him. No one laughed. Not anymore. Coach Reggie turned toward the room. "You all laughed. You called her a joke, a grandma, a joke with thrift store shoes," he scoffed. "And she just silenced every one of you with a single shot." Even Coach Victor lowered his head. "You all thought boxing was just swagger and social media," Reggie continued. "But she reminded Uriel power doesn't perform, it executes." Mira grabbed her gym bag, slung it over her shoulder, and walked toward the ropes, still silent, still composed. Jason, now helping Troy to sit upright, muttered under his breath, "She didn't even flinch." The crowd slowly parted as she walked through, heads turning in her wake. And then she paused. One camera still recorded, a phone held by the same trainee who had called her a warm-up dummy just 20 minutes earlier. Mira looked into the lens, calm, steady, her scar catching the fluorescent light. She said just one sentence. "I don't need you to remember my name. Just remember, never judge a woman by her size." Then she turned and walked out. The gym stayed silent long after the door clicked shut. Troy groaned softly on the floor. No one offered him applause. Only the ache of humiliation. Only the silence of a lesson learned the hard way. By the time the door shut behind Mira Collins, the gym felt hollow like a party where the music stopped and everyone remembered what they'd done. Troy sat slumped on the floor, a towel pressed against his ribs, his ego shattered into unrecognizable pieces. Not one person reached for a phone. Not one person dared to make a joke. The silence didn't just hang, it pressed. Reggie Blake stood by the ropes, arms crossed, eyes scanning the room with quiet contempt. "Funny," he said, almost to himself. "You all came here thinking this was about looking good. Turns out, it was about seeing right." The crowd shifted awkwardly. Tessa stepped back from the ropes, her bright smile gone, her phone now trembling in her hand. "I posted about her before she hit the ring," she whispered. "Called her a grandma on the wrong floor." Reggie raised an eyebrow. "Then maybe you should post the part where she dismantled your boy in under 3 minutes. The truth cut deeper than any punch." Coach Victor exhaled heavily. "She didn't even try to win. She just reminded us who she is." "No," Marcus said. "She reminded us who we were. Judgmental, loud, wrong." The gym didn't return to normal. Not that day. Not for a long time. Jason, once the loudest in Troy's corner, sat in silence, rewinding the fight in his head. His hands were clenched, not in anger but in realization. We mocked her gear, he muttered. Her shoes, her age. Her silence, Marcus added. She let us, Derek said, shaking his head. She let us talk. Across the room, someone whispered, and then she shut us up. The video of the match hit the internet within hours, not with edits or music overlays, but raw, a single clip, titled, "Don't Judge a Fighter by Her Age." What she did next shocked everyone. No one had to market it. It spread like wildfire. Forums lit up with debate. Trainers across the country dissected her movements. Fighters rewatched her footwork frame by frame. The boxing subreddit pinned her fight for an entire week. People weren't just stunned, they were reminded. That skill doesn't fade. That dignity doesn't need a mic. That strength whispersand still shakes walls. By the end of the week, Mira had no idea her name was trending. She didn't care. In her one-bedroom apartment in Newark, she sipped coffee black as asphalt and stared out the window like she always did. Her gloves rested by the radiator. Her shoes, still drying from the last rain, sat beside the door. No trophies, no posters, just quiet. She hadn't walked into Apex Gym to make a point. She'd walked in to see if she still had it. Turns out, she had something more. Later that month, Coach Reggie got a call. An elite women's gym in Boston wanted to name a wing after Mira. He laughed. "You can't name a wing after a ghost," he said. Mira? She disappears before the crowd claps. But when he told her, Mira only smiled faintly. "Let the ring remember," she said. "That's enough." Back at Apex, the culture shifted. The fitness models turned down their music. The influencers stopped mocking first-timers. Logan began watching people before judging them. And Victor Old School Victor started every class with the same warning. Before you laugh at someone's shoes, check your own footwork. Troy? He returned eventually, quieter, slower, humbled. He no longer filmed sparring matches. He no longer performed for cameras. Some said he trained harder than ever. Others said he trained like he was chasing something he'd never catch again, his own pride. And Mira? No one saw her again. Some claimed she walked into a gym in Queens, then vanished again after dropping another young hotshot. Others said she was teaching under a fake name. A few even said she joined a monastery. But none of that mattered, because the silence she left behind spoke louder than her presence. Every time a trainee at Apex paused before mocking a newcomer, every time a coach looked past the shoes, the age, the posture, every time someone remembered how one perfectly timed liver hook turned an entire gym to stone, Mira Collins was there. Not in name, in lesson. And maybe that's all she ever wanted. Because while everyone else screamed for attention, she left them with something stronger. A truth they could never unsee. That greatness doesn't wear neon. It walks in quietly, moves like a shadow, and leaves behind a silence so heavy even arrogance can't fill it. She never asked for respect. She just made sure you remembered the sound of your own silence after you lost it.